Welcome to today's live overview of Synergist. For those who don't know me, I'm Steve Vincent and I'm the sales director here, and I've been working with agencies for well over 20 years. And today's webinar is all about showing you what's possible with Synergist and how it can make a real impact on your agency. The session is designed to be short, sharp and focused, and ultimately I'm here to give you a quick high-level view of what's possible with Synergist. However, if after today's session, it does feel like the system could be a good fit for your agency and you'd like to delve a little bit deeper, then do let us know and we'd be happy to arrange a more detailed, tailored demo for you. So over the next 20-25 minutes, I'm going to take you through how Synergist helps agencies streamline operations, improve visibility, and ultimately boost profitability. So whether you're struggling with inefficiencies in project management, keep track of budgets and timescales, or just looking for a smarter way to run your agency, hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have a clear understanding of how Synergist brings everything together, giving you full visibility across your jobs, teams, and importantly, your financials, hopefully helping you plan better, track progress, and deliver projects on time and budget. Also allowing you to make better informed decisions with more accurate data at your fingertips. For those who don't know, Synergist is the #1 agency management software trusted by over 500 agencies across the UK. And since 2003, we've been dedicated to creating a platform specifically designed for agencies like yours. It's highly customizable and it makes it a perfect fit whether you're a creative agency, digital marketing PR agency, or any other professional service business. So today, hopefully I'll be able to show you how Synergist can help your agency streamline processes, gain visibility, and drive growth. Before we dive in, I just wanted to give you a bit of an insight into why so many agencies choose Synergist. Typically, and this might be true for some of you, a lot of agencies often find themselves juggling with multiple systems. So whether that be spreadsheets for budgets, separate tools for briefs, sales pipeline, resourcing, project tracking, invoicing, it's all very time consuming, disjointed, and it makes it hard to get a clear view of what's really going on across the business. That's hopefully where Synergist comes in. It replaces all those disparate systems and brings everything together in one place. So from your initial brief and sales opportunity right through to project delivery and invoicing, Synergist gives you that seamless joined up workflow. So it's not just about saving time, it's about creating transparency, hopefully boosting efficiency and profitability. So for this morning's sessions, we're going to look at a typical workflow of a job through an agency. So from sales pipeline, job creation, costing, some project management elements, resourcing, all the way through to those key important data insights. It's not a typical user journey that you would find a user using kind of Synergist for one visit, but hopefully it will show you how everything is connected throughout the system. Okay, let's get started. So I just need to switch my screens over. Bear with me a second. Cool. So hopefully now you should all be able to see my demo. And for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my camera off for this just so I can maximize the screen. So I will be back in a second, but I'm going to turn my video off. Right. So let's start by looking at how we manage pipeline. So in Synergist, we call these opportunities. So an opportunity is basically a quoted job, and it could be quoted for a client. It could be quoted for a prospect. And you can change the view of this and you can decide whether you look at this for new business, for clients, for certain teams. But in fact, what I've got on this view is a list of who my prospect is or my client is, description of the job, pipeline status, and these can all be customized, expected close date. I've brought through estimated hours, which we'll cover in a second. And I've also got an idea of the percentage chance of winning the opportunity. And obviously we've got the value of the opportunity too. Now, many agencies we work with will use separate tools for this, which is absolutely fine. So it might be a HubSpot, it might be a Pipedrive, Salesforce, but often it's only really used for managing pipeline. So there's already a disconnect and a lack of visibility of what potentially might land. So if you are looking to improve forecasting, it's important for these opportunities to be in Synergist at the right time, because then we can start looking at, as we mentioned, sales forecasting. So in terms of, what is it that we've got in our pipeline? But also because, and we'll look at this in a second, we have this idea of hours, it also allows us to start forecasting capacity early on. So how many hours will we need to deliver if we win these projects? And also, if we do win those projects, what type of resource will we require? And do we have the capacity for those resources to be delivering in that period? Finally, what we also get as well is a revenue forecast. So yes, the job will close maybe worth 100,000, but when can we forecast that we're going to recognize that revenue over the following periods? So at the right time, it's important for these to be in Synergist. And that's where, if you do use something like HubSpot and Salesforce, we do support integration. So it may be that at the point where there is something tangible to quote against, then you can use the integration piece to bring the prospect into Synergist and have it auto create an opportunity for you. We've also got the ability to record time against prospective work. So again, you can track that you're not spending too much time on a job that's not worth it or hasn't got the value. Unfortunately, if you do lose the opportunity, again, there's reports on how much time is being spent on not winning opportunities as well, which I think is fairly useful. Okay, so that's the sales pipeline side of things. Let's assume now that we've won that job. Jobs can be created from templates or from copying previous jobs or from scratch. So let's have a dive in to look at a job that I've created here. Now, I've chosen to drive straight into the estimate screen. And the estimate is, in Synergist terminology, your internal reality. It's basically your honest appraisal of what you think you'll need to deliver the brief. So this isn't your quote. This is us saying, right, okay, I'm going to break this job down into key components. And in my example, I've got discovery, concept development, and delivery. And I can estimate how many hours we honestly think we need to deliver each part of this job. So that will show me here that we've got potentially 69 hours, which will bring through, based on your rate card, your client rate card, the cost of those hours. It'll bring through a recommended charge, again, based on your rate card or your client's rate card, and an idea of what our profit might be. So it's great, so we can look at forecasting kind of how much time we'll need to spend, but we can also bring in third-party costs and materials. So in my example, I've got a print cost incorporated, which has no time associated, but we know it's going to cost us £1,000, and we've got a preset markup, or you can override this markup of 20%, which will mean that we're going to bring in a £200 profit on that. So this is my internal costing tool, which we often see in spreadsheets. So yes, it allows me to gain an idea of how much the system recommends we should be charging for this work, but also, and importantly, it helps drive my capacity forecasting that I mentioned on the previous screen. So in reality, we know that we'll need around 70 hours to deliver this piece of work. That is different to potentially how we are going to present this to the client. So the quote screen now allows me to take the estimate and say, right, okay, I don't necessarily want to show the client our workings. I don't necessarily want to show them each number of hours and our rates. So we can decide here how we present this. So it might be a rolled up view. It might be a detailed view. You saw there, you might want to add additional detail to come through into each of the lines. So we can start to play around with how we present this to the client. More importantly, we can also start to play around with our sell price. So this is where we often find agencies fudging the estimate just to match either the client's budget or the quoted fee. So the estimate should be reality, and the quote can be then a commercial decision, because often now agencies are looking at value propositions. So in reality, what can we get away with? How much can I charge this piece of work for? And so I can start to play around with either the individual figures or I can roll this up. One of the reasons that we might decide to charge more for this piece of work is due to the client investment figure that you might see at the bottom here. Bear with me a minute. So this client investment figure, and this figure here is showing me your current under and over recovery. So what the system tracks is how much have we invoiced the client to date against what we should have invoiced them for the work that we've delivered. So in this case here, I can see that we've under-recovered on previous projects to the value of around about £12,000. So before I go back out and quote this job to the client, is there any chance of me recouping that back on this project? So this works really, really well in Synergist. It doesn't always, I'm not seeing this in a lot of systems, but it's that ability to have a separate internal estimate to commercially what your quote is. These can obviously be emailed direct to prospects or to clients, and you can have multiple layouts in terms of how you want them presented. I've got an example of one that's I've got here. I hope you can see that. So again, it doesn't have to look like this, and we've got some ability to have kind of customization to this, but we can have your customized layouts in the background. As I said, it could be that you have ones which show quantity. You might have ones which are kind of currency based or dual currency based. You want to have ones which might have subtotals or options, but we can play around with that. And as I said, they can be PDF'd direct to your client or prospect. I also want to mention while we're here, billing plans and invoices. I don't think we've got a lot of time to go deeply into these today, but your billing plans allow you then to say, right, okay, if we're going to quote 12,000 for this job, I want to forecast when we're expecting to invoice that. So by putting a billing plan onto a job, it allows me to say, right, we're billing 50% now and 50% in the future. So one of the reports we'll look at in a second is forecasting invoicing. When it comes to invoicing, again, it's a session in its own right. There are lots of different options. You may be invoicing based on the quote value, you may be invoicing based on the billing plans, you may be invoicing based on a milestone, but all of those are supported. You may be billing up front, in which case we also support recognizing deferring revenue as well if you're pre-billing. And with the system, and once you've invoiced, there's also the opportunity for you to integrate those invoices and post them across to an account system. And we link to pretty much most major account systems on the market. The most popular by far are probably Xero, QuickBooks, and Sage, whether that be Business Cloud Accounting or whether it be Sage 50. Okay. Now we've put the estimate together, we've done the quote, hopefully we've won the project and we've started to record some costs against it. We can now look at how the job is progression. So we have dashboards for the agency, which we'll look at in a second, but each individual job has its own dashboard elements. And these are the key financial metrics that instantly can show you your job's financial health and profitability and allow you to track estimated, quoted, invoiced, or recognized time. So it's basically a live view of kind of percentage complete and also where you might have potential overruns. So here I can see things like invoice to quoted. I can see straight away that the value of work we've done is more than we've currently invoiced. So that might be a warning sign. And it shows me our current position in terms of profitability. So what was the original profitability we're aiming to achieve? And what does that look like now? So we've invoiced 4,500, we have purchases of 1,000. What's our gross profit? We've recorded time costs. So again, I can very quickly see how much our current net profit is, our current position. Okay. So that's looking at some of the elements of costing jobs, of quoting them and visibility of the financial aspect. If we look now more at some of the project management tools, the first thing that I want to look at, because this is often created in separate Excel sheets or accounting tools, is the ability to use a system to take the data that we've created in the estimate or in the phase structure and convert it very quickly into a Gantt chart view as well. So it may be that you need to be able to produce this to send to your client as part of the proposal. So that's really useful. But not only that, it's also helping drive our capacity reporting. So the fact that we've actually estimated a number of hours on this job. So for example, we knew that we had to deliver 25 hours in the discovery phase, then straight away, without doing any sort of resourcing, I know that we've got those 25 hours to deliver between these two dates. So without doing the resourcing, it gives us our capacity reporting, and you can have things like dependencies. And as I said, you can use this internally to manage the project, or you can share this with the client as well. Next up, I want to look at what we call tasks. Often this, again, looking at how other agencies would use this often would be in a system like Trello or Monday.com, but again, it's integrating it back into one system. And there are a lot of different user cases for this, and Kanban boards are used in different ways by different agencies, and you can have multiple Kanban boards, all with different swim lanes, all customizable. But typically, they could be used for things like adding tasks, so ad hoc work requests, which can be scheduled into the calendar, which we'll look at in a second. They may be phone calls, they may be emails, they may be follow-ups, and you can action them and you can allocate them to different members of the team. They then will send instant notifications to your team, and they can be either via email or by using our notification center. So there'll be a little there'll be a number in the bell icon up here. But also your team can timesheet against these activities so we can track time spent. And it's a simple exercise of just moving tickets between each swim lane. So as I said, lots of different user cases for this, but it becomes a really useful tool for managing communications and tasks on a much more agile basis on a project. What we've also got as well is the ability to have attachments, and that will allow you to create online document templates for maybe things like briefs or contracts. You can mail merge contacts and job data, and those also can be exported as branded PDFs, which you can share with your clients. You can also link Synergist as well to cloud file storage systems. So if you do have something like a SharePoint or a OneDrive and you have documents and attachments kept in there, then again, we can have a very quick connection between Synergist and that system too. Okay, so we've quoted and hopefully won the job. We've set up the tasks, and we now want to look at start to resource this system. So this is often where we will see another system being used, and that may be something like a resource guru or a float, which is absolutely fine. But the issue being is they're not connected. So we often find the key to successful scheduling is the fact that your scheduling manager has visibility, going back to the estimate, of how many hours have originally been scoped for delivering each part of the job. So they're not just allocating people to work on a project, there is some science behind it, and then they can simply drag a booking from the estimate into somebody's diary. So it's a very simple drag and drop, and we can have different colors to mean different things, whether it's the client, the project. So that can be customized. What we've got on screen though is I can see that I've got my different teams set up, and you can filter this. So I'm looking at the moment at my client services team, but you can have multiple teams with avatars, and you can choose to look at, as I say, individual teams, individual resources. And the view that I'm looking at is what we call our booking view. So very quickly, it shows me each of the granular bookings. And if I hovered over the booking, it would show me what that booking was, who it was for, who was working on it, and further details. So that's absolutely fine. We can put bookings across, you can see here, multiple days. You can book in draft and tentative bookings. We can book non-work related events as well. So holidays, absences as well. So that will kind of reduce capacity. But it's just a very nice, quick way of dragging our original estimate into people's diaries so we can see, and the team can see, who's working on which projects. What you might want to do, though, is actually look at the loading view, as this gives me more of a capacity view of what people are working on. So very quickly, whether this is for today, this week, this month, then you might want to be looking a little bit further ahead to say, okay, do we have capacity in this team? Thinking back to our opportunities list is saying, right, if we know full well that we've got a pitch going on and it's going to deliver, it's going to land in February, and it has a lot of dev work, I can look very quickly at my dev team and say, right, do we have capacity in February for delivering the project? So this is a very simple traffic light scenario. Green meaning we have availability, amber meaning somebody's fully booked, and red meaning there's more work booked than there are hours of the day, and you can very quickly kind of click on the booking and see what's making up that red, and then obviously make adjustments accordingly. It's also important to note as well is that you can change the number of hours and profiles and required chargeable hours on each individual resource. So for example, in this example, Jay will be fully booked when we've allocated him 8 hours, whereas somebody else might be fully booked. So perhaps Chris, as a creative director, he may be fully booked if we allocate him 4 hours, because we know full well there is internal work for him to do on other projects, which means we don't want to fill his diary with chargeable work if he isn't going to be available. So very simple drag and drop, but it is integrated. And the team, obviously we can restrict this in terms of who can move bookings around. That's really important. But the important also thing as well is once we've done this booking, that each of these bookings will then appear in individual people's diaries. So we call this my calendar. So if I go into my calendar, if the scheduling manager has booked me on for things, I can look at today, this week, this month, and say, right, what's in my calendar to deliver in chargeable work? And if I click on a booking, it will then give me a lot more detail in terms of what I've been allocated, and I can have very quick links back into the client, back into the job, back into the phase. And I can also identify how I'm progressing with this. So this is a nice tool to to share communication, particularly if you're working remotely. Then you can flag up if there's an issue. So perhaps you might need more time, or perhaps something's been stalled. That will then send an alert to scheduling manager and potentially the account manager as well for them to look at. But where it becomes really useful is, because nobody likes doing timesheets, is converting that booking into a timesheet. So auto creates that for you. So I can either use the timer icon, or I can simply say, yes, I've worked on that booking, and therefore there's no need for me to fill in any of the details of my timesheet. So straight away, it knows who the client is, it knows who the job is, it knows the task I was doing, it knows I'm an account director. It auto fills in the number of hours that I've been allocated, but you can override that. You can use a timer if you want, and then I can simply post that. So it makes timesheeting so much quicker if you're using the calendar to say, yes, that's what I'm doing. Having said that, we fully appreciate that you are asked to do jobs and work that isn't scheduled. So the system has lots of other time recording options as well. We mentioned the Kanban board and the task. That's one option. We also have a weekly timesheet view. You can have a daily timesheet view. And there's also an app as well, which allows you to post time via your phone if that works easier. Okay, so run the job, we've estimated it, we've quoted it, we've looked at some of the project management tools, we've now resourced it. What I want to look now is not at an individual job, but perhaps collectively at a list of all of my jobs. So if I now go into my job list, sorry, wrong one. Then what I can see is, and again, all of these can be filtered. So it might be just presenting my jobs or jobs that belong to my team, but very quickly I can start to see that dashboard view or that thermometer view of how we're progressing. Okay, so and you can create different views for different people. I've called this one estimate versus quoted. So as an account director, what I'm interested in seeing in this view is things like, okay, how many hours do we estimate? What's the actual hours to date? And then showing that as a percentage. What was the estimated charge against quoted? And show that as a percentage. How much are we invoiced? And then going back to that, what's the value of work to what we quoted? So I get to choose, and you get to choose, which columns that you want on your report. And then you can save those as a view that's either a view for you, or it may be a view that you share across your client services team. Once you have those views, and this is true throughout the system, then you can group them. So I might want to have a resourcing one. This one works really well as well for looking at forecasting. In this view, I want to look at actual versus estimated in terms of timesheets. So we can see here that we've actually spent 87% of our time has been burnt already. But I also want to look into the future. So what I've also brought through is what also is booked into the future in the calendar. So at the moment, as we stand, we've burnt 80% of the time. But if we include what's yet to be delivered, i.e. what's booked in the calendar, we're going to be more like 101%. So it allows me to hopefully capture jobs before they go over budgets. So, we might be, 49%, but actually we're more like 54%. So again, a different view that could be used by a different member of the team, but it just allows you to have that visibility. Right, okay, so we've Looked at the different job aspects. We can also switch this as well to look at things like billing plans. So I mentioned before about identifying when jobs may be due to be invoiced or income to be recognized. Then again, this switch of view from the job list allows me to look at that and again, this is typically something we see in a spreadsheet and produce at the end of the month. But it's a really kind of nice tool for the finance team to look at the summary, the prior period and future periods and identify exactly what's due to be invoiced and what's planned and what hasn't been invoiced come the end of the period. Okay. Okay, so we've gone through the journey now of looking at some of the process of setting the job up, resourcing it, and monitoring the performance, and how that looks on screen. There are lots and lots of different reports in the system. Again, we'd probably need a separate session for looking at all the different options for the reports, but lots of standard reports, month-end finance reports. By far, the most popular ways of looking at reports is in the dashboard view. So we have a number of dashboards in the system, and you can switch between the dashboards, and also you can make them some of them available to some teams and you can restrict them for others. So management dashboards we'll look at in a second. It might be more financial information. Typically, everybody has a personal dashboard. So all the things I've been doing throughout the system, if you're saving them as a view, there is an option to add them to your personal tiles. So when I log into this system in the morning, what I'm presented with, for me, are the things that I need to take action on. So they could be tasks, they could be invoices that need approving, they could be things by exception. So I've got jobs that don't have any billing plans, so that's important for me to go on. There could be opportunities that we've got in the pipeline. You can create your own tiles and you can call them whatever you want, but it's just a nice way of kind of reminding people of what needs to be updated. Management dashboard, as I mentioned, much more kind of financial figures on this one. So this is looking at a system where we get an instant view of your actual and forecasted revenue and profit. And this can be by agency or by company or by team or by current user. And you can get to see who your top clients are. Again, that can be filtered as well by invoiced or gross or net profit in a given period. We get to see your invoice forecast as well. So we mentioned the billing plans and things like earnings per head. Really important as well for most agencies, tracking, are we achieving the golden 100 grand earnings per head? So the system will calculate that. So based on your revenue and based on the number of people you've got, how many people, what is our current earnings per head? Sales dashboard, it's a visualization of the opportunity list that we looked at before. So what do we have in our pipeline? It kind of shows us for new and existing clients quickly, percentage profitability of closing it, and also it can track account handlers' performance against targets, and you can instantly see the hours that you've sold against what's available, and you may even break that down by type of resource as well. Performance is much more around utilization. So again, those targets that we set for teams or individuals when they record their time, chargeable, non-chargeable, this allows me very quickly to see how we're performing again as a company or maybe just against my team. So we can switch that view. We have a capacity view as well, which is again pulling from the calendar that we looked at before, but giving me as a more kind of visual format. So here I can see hours required. We can see what's been booked, the percentage unbooked, and therefore what's available. And that availability can then be viewed either by resource or by team. And then finally, because you have access to all the data in the system, we have our own reporting tool, report writing tool, shall I say, which is called data analytics. You can create your own bespoke reports and then give them a name. And again, once you've done that, you have options to save those onto your own personal dashboard or to share with the team. And this is where we often find agencies having things like board reports pre-configured on here. So I've got some examples here. So I might have created a capacity. So here I can see a capacity view by type of resource for this period and future periods, and I can choose whether I want to have that visualized in a graphical format as well. Okay, so we've just hit the end of the 30 minutes, gone over slightly. So that brings us to the end of the overview. I just want to share before we go with you though, that really is kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the system can do. Hopefully you can see on the screen there, the system is really functional and really scalable. So if you're looking to develop it, to grow your agency, then I think you can see from the screenshot there is the system does pretty much everything that an agency would need to do from the life cycle journey of a job. So it's very scalable, and that's why we've been working with agencies for kind of many years to come. So there's no need to change systems in the future because, as you can see, it does cover a lot of the stuff that you would need to do on a day-to-day basis.